before I discuss the downside of having cerebral palsy, I'm going to kind of explain, I don't really like discussing the negative effects of having cerebral palsy because they're difficult to talk about. But I think a lot of times it's more interesting to talk about the negative effects because people, want to hear about those, and people are challenged with the same effects that I am. And a lot of times people who are subscribed and regularly watch my videos already have cerebral palsy, so they can relate to some of the topics that I'm going to discuss today. And that's kind of why I'm uploading this video, is to show that people who have cerebral palsy, milder cases, aren't alone. We all go through certain trials and tribulations in life. But before I also discuss it, I want to say that I'm glad to live in the United States of America. For if I didn't live in the United States, I wouldn't have the freedom that I do, and I probably wouldn't even be alive, because a lot of countries don't value people with disabilities like cerebral palsy, and they might kill them at an early age or put them in some corner where they can't go out in public in fear of their life being mugged or abused in certain ways. So fortunately, United States values individualism and promotes, you can do whatever you put your mind to. I think that's a great cause worth fighting for, and that's the reason that I can ultimately do what I do, is because I live in a great country that has the freedoms that we do, that allows people, even who might have the odds against them, to succeed in life. So the downside of having cerebral palsy, there's a few reasons. I'll kind of go into brief overviews of each. First of all, you walk slower. This can be uncomfortable. You kind of develop a sense of self-security while walking slower, because you're generally going to be the only person who walks at the pace that you walk around if you're in a large group. So you're gonna become more secure because of the way you walk. At least that's the way I look at it, and it's a great way to be, is more secure. But it also can be sometimes frustrating if you're trying to keep up with somebody and you can't, because it's hard to keep up with people. So another downside would be you have bad balance. I've noticed for me, just walking, sometimes on a gravel, I can trip easily over cracks. If it's windy out, I'll fall down more frequently. I look at everybody who doesn't have a physical disability as having really good balance. I know not everybody does look at it like that, but it's something that I look at everybody like. They have great balance if you can walk normal, because my balance is just so bad. It's again something you get used to over time. Certain cases of cerebral palsy might cause symptoms and signs of depression or bipolar disorder. I don't think in my life it really does cause those symptoms, but you got to remember, I had a great childhood with great parents and a supportive family who ultimately supported me throughout my life, and I think that's important. And I also try to encourage people to live in an intact family, don't have illegitimate children, and ultimately support the traditional values of the American way in order to keep this country the way it is. So another thing is that another downside of having cerebral palsy is that you have physical pain. It's not just in my legs, it's also lower back has physical pain when I'm walking. I wouldn't say up to really my arms really don't, but it's mainly my lower back and below, especially when I walk a lot or stand. I'll have quite tremendous amount of physical pain compared to the average person, because when I was younger I didn't really have physical pain. So I know what it feels like to be able to walk and not have physical pain, but since I'm older now, I do feel physical pain, and I plan on living quite a bit older, than I am today, because cerebral palsy, at least my case, doesn't really affect lifespan. So I do expect to have more physical pain as I get older. So I'm just kind of happy with the amount of physical pain I'm in, because I don't expect it to become less as I age, which is another reason why I promote the well-being of American society. So someday we might be able to come up with a cure, because if we have all this criminality in this country and it continues to go up at the rate it's going to go up at, we're not going to be able to research cures for disabilities like we currently have. My point being is that a lot of people have disabilities that they cannot control, and a lot of people commit crimes that they can control. If people just refrained from committing crimes and ultimately acted in more civilized fashion, we might be able to come up with cures to disabilities to people who can't control them. So I think it's important that our country progresses rather than regresses, is my point here, so we can come up with cures to not only cerebral palsy, but cures that can ultimately make this nation a more productive place to live. So another downside of having cerebral palsy is you have shortness of breath, especially while walking. While sitting down, you'll notice now I don't have shortness of breath, and that's because I am sitting down. But when I'm walking, I really do have shortness of breath, or when I'm standing up. So there's certain uncomfortable situations. It's hard for me to give speeches or give an accurate point of view while standing up, because I focus a lot of concentration on standing or walking when I am on my feet. So that sort of thing, it can be uncomfortable, is having the shortness of breath while standing up. The last but not least, you go through shoes a lot faster. This would kind of be a minor one compared to the other ones, but it's something that happens. You go through shoes faster. Not only do your shoes wear out faster, but ultimately your feet kind of take a toll as well from the way you walk. You're probably gonna have bad bunions, or other part of your feet, your toes are going to be slanted. You'll notice the tips of your shoes are going to be worn down on the front right hand corner, and that's something that you're going to keep in mind if you have cerebral palsy. But ultimately, I think this country is a great place to have cerebral palsy. If I lived in any other country, chances are I wouldn't have the quality of life that I have today. So I do appreciate all the people who've sacrificed their life so we can have all the freedoms that we have today. And I think that's important, to appreciate the freedoms that we do have if you have cerebral palsy, because that's one thing that Americans can appreciate, is the freedom that they have despite the conditions that they're faced with.